guys, so just finished my run test in testing week this week. So I'm going to be testing my bike on Thursday, which actually happens to be my birthday as well. So what a way to spend your birthday doing a VO2 max test, pushing yourself to the limit. But in terms of what we already saw from the run, just a quick insight and something I wanted to show you was just the importance of doing the long slow training for me in particular. What we're going to be seeing in my data in particular, and what's very clear from the run, is that my high intensity, so my aerobic power or ability to use oxygen at those higher rates isn't too bad. It's just the long slow just is non-existent. So that aerobic capacity isn't quite there. Makes a lot of sense. My focus for the majority of the year has been on aerobic power for footy. Now I'm trying to transition all of that foundation into long, slow, continuous, and just trying to sustain a pace for a long period of time. I just don't have the ability to use oxygen total at the low intensities. That's causing me to use a little bit more of the anaerobic system contribution, which I can tolerate the fatigue really well. But what it means is that I'm starting on a really high base of lactic acid. I'm producing a lot of it quite early. So then later on the test, I'm just being inhibited. As you know from last week, had a bit of sort of time off with a bit of sort of burnout and a bit of training fatigue overall. So that has probably impacted the top end of my result a little bit. All right, guys, I know it's a little bit blurry, so I apologize for that because we are filming on the GoPro, but very, very quickly, what you can see here is my lactate early. So at rest, it was 3.2 millimoles, which is quite high. 1 to 2 is typical resting. Then it jumped up to 3.8. And then we see these ones through here. So these lower intensities, 5-minute Ks, 436, 417, 3.8, 5.5, 6.5 lactate. Then it stabilized. So this back end is actually really good. My tolerance isn't too bad. It's just the fact that these early lactates are accumulating quite quickly. And at 436 pace, I'm feeling all right, but it means the sustainability of it isn't really great. I mean, higher lactate reading, we ideally want that as low as possible. So this is what I'm talking about with that long slow is really going to develop that ability to use oxygen for a long period of time and just continually work. In my case, volume is going to be a key aspect of the training program over the next little while. Try and drop some of these low lactates to then these higher ones. When it does start to kick up, I'm starting for a lower base. So it's sort of delaying the point at which we start to come up. If, for example, this is 2.8, a 3.5, now we're getting a 4.5 and then 5.5. This is just going to come up. Eventually I'm going to hit 9, but it's just going to happen a lot later. So key focus for me over the next 9 or 10 weeks, long slow training. Testing's all done. In all honesty, I was a little bit disappointed with the results of my bike and my run test. In terms of where I have to go to improve from the testing results, and it's pretty clear what I need to do in the next little while. That was a bit of a positive. So overall, the key things that did change, definitely on the bike a lot easier. So my zone 2, top end of zone 2 actually bumped up by about 10 watts. But given that bike I know is going to be my weakness, and I've said that from the start, I think that little lift at the bottom of zone, the top of zone 2, bottom of zone 3, is a good sign that's ticking along the right direction. And just a bit more long slow Ks on the bike over the next 6 or 7 weeks is going to be really, really useful still. Threshold was up, so FTP on the bike was up again, sort of 20 odd watts. My bike as a whole did improve. The thing that was really pleasing was that the VO2 intervals were being on 255 watts, say 3 on 3 off type session. A lot of those Zwift interval sessions you would have seen in previous weeks really had their effect. Instead of maxing out or hitting VO2 max at 270 watts like I did last time, I pushed through into 300 this time. I felt a lot more comfortable at 300. As for usage of oxygen, my aerobic power didn't improve too much, which was a bit disappointing. So VO2 max as a whole stayed pretty much the same as what it was 12 weeks ago. It just happened at a higher intensity on the bike and a little bit later, a lot later into the test. It ended up being like 4 minutes later in the test. I plateaued really early last time, but it just happened at a higher intensity. On the run, it didn't change at all. Pretty much the same. I got a little bit into 17 kilometers an hour, which I didn't quite get in the first test. So that was pleasing, but VO2 max was identical. Pretty much happened 30 seconds after where it did the previous test. Lactate was still high, or higher than what I would like in the lower intensities, and then just progressively moved. Threshold stayed the same. A lot of my training zones were basically identical to last time, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I haven't really adapted. A lot of it has to do with a bit of that burnout I was talking about last week, and losing that high intensity aspect in a couple of weeks worth of training has definitely so set me back from the aerobic power side of things. The thing that probably got me the most is not doing enough long slow. My longest run so far continuously has been 45 minutes, which for those guys who've trained for a 70.3 before probably think I'm insane. I haven't had the time to be able to get the long slow in. Like I described last video, that's got to be the clear focus. And before I even tested, I knew that was going to be the area that I had to work on. And it's just even more evident now with the data to back it up that I need long slow Ks in the legs, particularly running, but also on the bike as well. So big focus over the next little while. Zone 2 is going to be a heavy emphasis, adding in an extra run a week. So I'm getting back to, I'm going to try and get at least one high intensity run that's more threshold based, 2 long slow, and a run off the bike, hopefully. So probably 4 runs across the week, just to get that long slow continuous or getting that continuous rhythmic running at the same intensity happening without breaks, without rest periods in between. Obviously need to keep some of the intensity into that interval session is going to work in there as that sort of 4th run. On the bike, at least 2 long slow, one of them just sort of midweek, just might jump on Zwift and just sort of cruise around before or after work. Maybe a bit of commuting as well as the weather starts to warm up. Daylight savings has just kicked in here in Melbourne, so we've got a bit of extra daylight at the end of the day, so that might help me get a bit more in terms of commuting to and from work. Might help me get some of those Zone 2 Ks in. But big ride on a Saturday, followed by that run off the bike, where I'm going to aim to try and get as much volume as I need, but then also much volume as I can tolerate as well. I think this week I'm sort of planning to go out and doing about 3.5 hours at least, just Zone 2 chip away, maybe throw in some efforts if I feel like I need to. Swimming is ticking along really, really well. So I was actually really impressed. I did a time trial as part of my testing as well. I didn't film it because I was at a different pool. Started out to swim, and I probably got through the first 200 meters feeling all right, and I went, you know what, I'm just going to push through and just see what I can do over a K, not go flat out. I wasn't going full gas. So I was probably actually hitting about maybe a 6 out of 10 intensity, maybe a 7 by the end of it. Eased myself into it, settled into a good rhythm, and thought I could probably hold this for another 500 to probably the 1.9, which I was pretty happy with. Again, pool swim, so it is going to be different to an open water, no wetsuit versus wetsuit in the open water on the day. Ended up swimming about 16 minutes for the 1K. So I was really pleased that even though I haven't done a massive amount of swimming and I haven't done a lot of volume, like my longest continuous swim so far has been sort of 1,500, 1,800 meters. So I haven't done a massive amount of volume or over volume. I focused mostly on quality efforts, but then been changing intensity. So doing this the rolling hundreds, 100 easy, 100 moderate, 100 hard, then going back and starting again and just changing gears and understanding where my body's at and getting a good feel for the water has really helped me nail my technique. And I'm feeling really quite relaxed and able to just turn the arms over quite comfortably. So the positive side is the swim's ticking along well. I got to pick up the volume a little bit, but I'm not too concerned about overdoing the volume in the pool. Bike is starting to get there from a long slow perspective, and the power is starting to increase a bit. The run, I just need to work on stringing together some continuous Ks, and I should be starting to put together a pretty sort of quality overall athlete profile, really. Glad I did the testing. Was a bit disappointing, but there's no point sort of sitting on it. We just got to move forward into the next sort of 7 weeks and build towards Busso. So that's it for this week. 6 weeks to go. Not long. 6 weeks, and that's including the taper too, so it's not long at all. Anyway, we'll get stuck into it, and we'll see you next week.